Hi, I'm Phyllis from southernfrugal.com. I had a request. Someone asked if I could do a video about retirement. And not only can I do a video, I'm going to do 3 videos. And I have to divide them up because they would be way too long to just do one video on retirement. But I wanted to start out by saying Mr. Bucky retired at age 70. Now, he had retired from the public school. He was superintendent of schools at his retirement, and he did that at, I think he told me, it's hard to remember that far back, y'all, but I think he was 55 when he retired from there. And I was self-employed, so he went to work with me for about 2 years, and then he broke his foot, not just his ankle. He crushed his foot, falling down the stairs, and so that's also when I retired, because of course he couldn't get around at all, and I had to care for him a lot during that time. So it was about I guess 2.5, maybe even 3 months before he got to where he could really get around good. Now, his ankle is kind of fused together, which is why you see me do all the work where I have to go up on a ladder and that kind of stuff, because his ankle doesn't bend like normal people's would bend. So anyway, he retired, and then he worked for 2 more years with me. Then once his ankle and foot got well, he took a job as a headmaster for a private school. So he was already drawing retirement from our state so he could work for a much lower salary, which is what he did. And of course, that was the job he loved most of the jobs he's had during his lifetime. He loved that job and loved the people. And so he ended up working there for, I believe, 14 years. And so he was up there, left on Monday morning and came back Friday afternoon or Friday night sometimes. And he also coached football, baseball, and basketball off and on during those years, which he also, I'll have to tell you, that's his absolute passion, are the sports. So in other words, he went from a retirement of the main job of his life into a job that he just loved. So it wasn't really like work to him because he really loved it. So during that time, once he was up at the private school during the week. Now, it was 200 miles from us, so he had to stay there during the week. And so I was here alone. So of course, I've always got projects I'm doing. But one day we were sitting watching TV, and when he was home, and because now, remember, it was a private school, so he was off during Christmas, he was off at Easter, he was off during the summer, so that was great. But anyway, we were watching TV during the day, and he was on the stock channel. And I said, well, what do those little numbers mean that are running across the bottom of the screen? I said, does that mean that went up like 10 cents or 25 cents? And he said, yeah, that's what that means. And I said, really? So if you had like 500 shares and it went up, 25 cents, and then you sold it, you would make that much money? And he said, yeah, that's the way it works. So I said, well, I think I'd like to do that. So we went to a bookstore and probably Barnes and Noble, and bought a bunch of books on day trading. And so, needless to say, I got into day trading, and I teetotally loved it. So my very first trade, and I'm just telling y'all this to get into the other stuff we did. So I was using an old computer, one that we had used in our work, and it was the big kind, it wasn't a laptop. And so I got everything all set up, and I think I started out trading with maybe 20,000, and I started out by you know how they were always back then sending you things that said you could get money for 20,000 at 0% interest for 6 months, and the monthly payment was only $15 a month. I did that, y'all. And of course, Mr. Bucky approved it. He said, yeah, sure, go ahead and do that. And so then I'd make my little $15 a month payment. So that's how I started out. And my very first trade, which was I bought Lowe's home improvement stock, and I bought it, and I bought it at 3:30 in the afternoon and sold it at 5 minutes to 4 and made $300. Well, I was hooked, y'all. I mean, I was totally hooked. It didn't always go that well, but it did go pretty well. And this is when the stock market was, of course, climbing up, up, up. And so I did that for 2 or 3 years. I don't remember now, but I loved it. But it took up a lot of time. But see, I was home by myself, so I had the time. And so I did that. And of course, then the stock market started going down, so I just got out. I haven't gotten back in since. Of course, I know it's going up now, but no way could I do that now. But anyway, so that's what I did. I also did some portrait work and did some paintings that I sold. Now, I could never have made an income doing that, y'all. I mean, I thought I was okay, but you just can't make an income doing that unless you're real famous. So anyway, that's sort of the setup of where we were. So then Mr. Bucky was just not going to retire, y'all. He just was going to keep working. And I said, you know what? We've been doing this for 14 years. Isn't it time to retire? And he was, going to be 70. And so he said, well, he would think about it. And I said, well, why can't we just do that? And he said, well, I like to have the extra money so we can take trips and all that, because we had done a lot of traveling every summer. And also we traveled at Christmas and sometimes even at Easter. So we had gone and done a lot of traveling. So anyway, once he agreed that he would retire, which took another 6 months or so, he said, okay, I think we can do this. And so then they were after him to stay on. So he was really conflicted there on, staying home or not. So finally he decided he would. So then what I started doing, I said, well, we will actually have more money if you stay home than we have now. And we did, y'all. So, but we did because this is what we started doing. First of all, the house was paid for, so that was no big deal. But during that time, we also had big electric bills, and gas was real expensive back then. So, and when I say back then, we're only talking 6 years ago. So anyway, I got out of the stock market, and so I thought, well, why don't I just use this brain of mine to figure out how we can live cheaper, because we really, y'all, we were living high on the hog, as they say. And I would have at that time, I would have never bought clothing at Walmart. Whoever did that? I didn't even know anybody that did that. So I wouldn't, not only that, I didn't even get my groceries there. I never even went in there. So I said, okay, these people must know something I don't know. I'm going to start checking into all this stuff. So I started shopping at Walmart. I started couponing and doing all that stuff. And that all worked out really well. In fact, it worked too well, because now Mr. Bucky got caught up in the couponing too, y'all. I'll have to tell you, he did. And so what we would do, we went to church at that time in Columbia. And so we had, it's about 30 minutes away. And so what we would do is go to CVS and Walgreens, because their flyers come out on Sunday. And so we would go early. And I mean, a lot of stuff you just get totally free. So we ended up with, I literally had toilet paper stacked all the way up to the ceiling in the office. All the way up to the ceiling, because in fact, I remember it was White Cloud. That's what it was. That was the toilet paper. Because toilet paper lasts forever, and if you're getting it almost free, just go ahead and get however much, right? So we did that. Excuse me. So then we all of a sudden then just said, wait a minute, because we were late for church one morning. because we were in a CVS and in line, and it was taking long and all that. And we were sitting in church once we got there, and Mr. Bucky said, "I don't think we need to be doing this before church," and I agreed. So we just stopped doing the pharmacies. We just stopped, and but I was still doing the other couponing, and I had the book, and I had the little thing that holds the flyers, and we got like 4 papers every Sunday, and Sunday afternoon we would divide up the coupons. And I'm just telling you, Mr. Bucky was into this too, because once he realized we were getting so much stuff almost free. But the thing was, you could never get fresh vegetables and stuff like that for free, and or with coupons. So then I had looked at some videos on dumpster diving, y'all. Dumpster diving. I was willing. And so I tried 2 different sets of friends that we had over for a meal, and we had gone to their place, and I had talked with them about it if they would go with me, the ladies. And I couldn't really talk anybody into it. And Mr. Bucky was adamantly against dumpster diving. He said, "I am not having my wife crawling around in a dumpster." But what I was after was the fresh vegetables and the fruits. That's what because I was seeing those videos on that. I wasn't after, going behind stores and, electronic stores and getting stuff and perfumes from pharmacies and department stores and then reselling it or whatever. I wasn't into that. I just was after the fresh fruits and vegetables. So anyway, came up with a plan. So one day on the way home from church, we were going by Piggly Wiggly, and I asked Mr. Buck, I said, "Can you just pull in here a minute?" And he pulled in. He said, "Well, what do you need?" And I said, "Well, pull around back. I want to go look in the dumpster." Well, he was just, "What?" And I said, "Oh, come on, just let me go look." And so he pulled around to the side, and I jumped out, and I looked in the dumpster. Every kind of vegetable that they sell in the store was in there. Some of it, not hardly anything wrong with it. Just every kind of thing you could imagine that the grocery store sells was in the dumpster, including breads, cakes, all of that was in the dumpster. And now my plan was never to get anything like cake and bread and all that from the dumpster, but I was very interested in the produce. And I was interested in it because I wanted us to do the organic gardening. And we didn't have enough left over from stuff we were having in order to do that. So I went in and talked to the produce manager, who happened to be a young man who was in school when Mr. Bucky was principal. And so I did a little name dropping. I told him who I was, and he said, "Oh, yeah, Dr. Stokes." And I said, "Yeah." And so we got to talking, and I asked him, could we pick up the produce that they were going to throw in the dumpster? In other words, I wanted to get it before they put it in the dumpster. And he said, "Sure, I don't see why not, because that would save him from having to take it out to the dumpster." So for 2 years, we picked up on Monday and Wednesday, and at one point we were picking up Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And of course, the same produce that you would be buying on, I'm all onto the composting, y'all. I need to start this over because I was talking about retirement expenses. But anyway, I'll do another video on that one because you will be shocked at what I tell you. Anyway, let me get back to the retirement. Sorry, I got off subject. I'm older. You have to make allowances for me, okay? All right, so back to the expenses. Now, first of all, we were able to use a lot of the fruits and vegetables that we picked up because all that happened was he picked it up from the shelf and put it in put it in the box, which then ended up in the grocery cart, which we wheeled out and put in the back of the truck. So anyway, it never even touched the dumpster, is what I'm trying to tell you. But anyway, so we were able to not have to buy any kind of fruits and vegetables for 2 years because we did that. And we had tons of stuff to compost also. But anyway, let me get back to this. So the next thing, we got the Ramsey's book. I can't remember his first name now. Ramsey book on how to get out of debt, because I thought he would also be telling us other stuff, which he wasn't, y'all. So that book didn't do us just a whole lot of good, but it got me to thinking, if you say to yourself, every penny does count. So with that, what can we do with lowering the electric bill? What can we do to lower the cable bill? And what can we do to use less gas in the car? And, do we really need a beach trip twice a year? Do we really need that? No, we don't. And so it just kind of went from there. And we even actually started going to a different church that was closer, a lot closer than the one we were going to in Columbia, because we finally figured out it took over $10 worth of gas to go there and come back. So we started doing that. So also we used to eat out all the time, y'all. We did. Certainly on the weekend. It was nothing for us to eat out on Friday night, Saturday night, and after church on Sunday. Sometimes we ate out on Wednesday. Well, that just needed to stop. First of all, I think what I cook at home tastes better than what's in the restaurants most of the time. So we started not going out to eat like that. We saved tons of money not doing that. And we saved on the electric bill, even the water bill, y'all. It would just shock you that you can lower your water bill. We did that. And let's see, also we were eating less meat, a lot less meat, which I was very happy with. In fact, during that period was when I was vegan. I didn't eat any meat or animal product during that time. Mr. Bucky still had meat though, but we cut back way back on the amount we were eating. And we pretty much are still there. We rarely, if ever, eat over 3 ounces of any kind of meat. All right, so, and as soon as he retired, we both got laptop computers, and Mr. Bucky thought I was going to continue in the stock market. Now, let me tell you, he found it very exciting too. Now, I didn't like it when I was day trading and I got stuck in a stock. Like one time I got stuck in a Walmart stock and had to end up keeping it for like a month. Boy, I sure didn't like to do that. I wanted to buy, make a little money, sell, buy, make a little money, sell. And I'll just tell you that one of the stocks I made a lot of money on was Bed Bath & Beyond, my favorite, right? I made a lot of money trading that stock. So anyway, we bought the 2 computers, and then, of course, Mr. Bucky ended up, over a period of about 18 months, writing the 5 books. I ended up writing 2. I'm not sure why I did that. I just did. And so we ended up with 7 books. We published them through Amazon. And we did that. Of course, we had the computers. And we also started eating even healthier than we were when we were picking up for the compost, because we stopped doing, we only did that for 2, in fact, we did it for exactly 2 years, starting in January. And also, we started making decisions different about spending money. And so we would say, okay, now, do we really need this? Or in my case, do I really need this? And most of the time the answer was no, you don't really need that. So we are still only buy very few clothes, only just what we need. And as far as the cable went, of course, we had every channel imaginable, most of which we never ever watched. And so we lowered our cable bill, and then about a year later, we called them and told them, well, we didn't want this channel, we didn't want that channel, and what could we do? And so I listened to the conversation Mr. Bucky was having. He said, look, I'm retired, and I can't afford this kind of high cable bill, and I'm just going to have to go to Dish if we can't get this lower. And they lowered it, y'all, by $30 a month. So I'm just sitting in there listening, thinking he is really good at this. So anyway, and we have kept the cable bill low. Now, I had looked up on a website and saw where these people talked about you could get 3 channels, sometimes 5, with just an antenna. In fact, it could be a homemade antenna that you actually put flat up against your wall. I really wanted to do that, y'all, because I wanted the cable gone. I really did. I was just tired of it. But Mr. Bucky couldn't agree to that because he couldn't get his ball games, y'all, on ESPN. Is that what it is? The sports network? He has to have that. So anyway, the other thing that we did prior to his retirement is we went to all the University of South Carolina football games that were at home. And we usually went to one or two that were away. Now, can y'all imagine how much that cost? It cost a lot. And first of all, just to get the season's tickets, you had to join the Gamecock Club, and all of that really cost a lot of money. And I never really questioned it because Mr. Bucky just loves it so much. How could you even question it, right? But he's the one that decided no more. It had to be his decision. It couldn't have been mine. In fact, if I had even suggested it, he would have gotten upset. But he decided. So I thought of the guy's Dave Ramsey book. That's the one we read. And we sort of used that as a guide, not about getting out of debt, but about how they were living to get out of debt, and the fact that every penny does count. And so in that way, the book helped us a lot to look at every little thing, every which way your money goes out. And of course, I guess two of the biggest things would be if you had a mortgage, and the next biggest thing would be the food. And this, the thing about going out to eat, y'all, we couldn't believe how much money we were spending going out to eat. It was just unbelievable what we were spending. So that just stopped. So now we occasionally, like it was our anniversary just the other day, and we went out to Ruby Tuesdays. Now, I'll tell you before, we would have gone to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse or Carrabba's, which would have cost us probably $150. That's what we would have done, but no more. We don't do that anymore. Because eating food, wherever you get it, is, I mean, if it's good, it's good. But now, if we were going out to eat, we would go to Captain D's, Hardee's, or Arby's with a coupon. And Mr. Bucky reminded me this morning that at McDonald's you can get the Big Mac buy one, get one free on Monday. Yeah, he knows I like those. He's not that crazy about them, but I do like the Big Mac. I just like the sauce that's on them. So we still don't eat out hardly at all. And the other thing is that the medical. Now, you can't get Medicare until you're age 65. And then you need a supplement. So all of the health care would be taken care of. Now, I don't know how it works with Obamacare because we just weren't involved in any of that. We were already too old for that and already on Medicare. But all of the medical expense is paid for. Now, we didn't have many medical expenses anyway, but it's good to know that if you did have some big medical expenses, that Medicare and the supplement would take care of all of it. You really wouldn't have any out-of-expense money on that. So the vacations stopped. Because where else were we going to go? I mean, we'd been to Mexico, we'd been to Canada, and we weren't really interested in, flying across the ocean somewhere. And I particularly wasn't interested in that because I don't like to fly. But we had, the only states would be like Montana, Utah, and of course Mr. Bucky's seen Washington and Oregon, but I haven't. But I've seen Canada and he hadn't. So those would be trips we would want to do still maybe. But anyway, so that's about it. Really, oh, and the car, I was just looking at my notes. We decided to not trade cars, y'all. Before we were trading, I don't know, every couple of years seems like we were trading cars. And so we thought, okay, we have a Lincoln Continental and a Lincoln Town Car. And before that we had like, I don't know what kind, they were Crown Victoria, something. Anyway, we did have to pay more money for these two cars, but they're still running. Both of them are still running. And so what we do is if you have any kind of problem, we just get it repaired. And like the Lincoln Continental, I don't know what they call them, struts or whatever that thing is that causes the car to bounce along. I'm not sure what that's called, but anyway, I do remember it cost $1,200 to fix them. So that was a big expense, but everything else has not been that much, and it's certainly a lot better, than having a car payment for sure. So anyway, we also, and Mr. Bucky wanted me to make sure I mention this. We had decided that we were going to look for entertainment that was free, like things at the park in Columbia. They have concerts there and all kinds of stuff, and then they have senior things that are free, like at the zoo and all kinds of stuff like that. And Mr. Bucky pointed out that we had never done any of those, not even one time, but we were going to do them, but we just never did. And so what ended up happening is that because gas prices went up so high, we had changed churches to one much closer, and we stopped eating out, and we lowered our cable bill, we lowered our electric bill. I forgot to mention that one. So me and him both crawled under the house. That's the other time that I had crawled under. I think I'd mentioned that before, that I had been under there before. And we wrapped all of the pipes, like particularly the hot water pipe, and we insulated the whole closet where the hot water heater is, and we did some, we didn't do any caulking or anything like that, but we did some stuff on the doors so that no air could come through, and also we put in those lights, the little swirly swirl lights. And of course, I've since changed them back to the regular lights. I hate those little lights, but we changed every light in the house, and the electric bill was dramatically lowered. We also set the thermometer, or the temperature, on the summertime at 75, and the wintertime at 65 and sometimes 60. Because if we keep the two doors closed, one to the office and one that goes into the foyer, we can actually turn the thermostat down to 60 and it'll still stay comfortable in the den. And if it's real cold, we use that little heater, which I've already done a video on, that little infrared heater. It keeps both rooms really toasty warm. So we can do that in the wintertime, and we're still doing that. So some of the things we started doing right at retirement, a lot of them, in fact, we have continued doing. And I'll have to say, I think it's a much more orderly way of life. And I really wish we had been doing this many, many years early. We would have saved a ton of money by doing that. And I can't tell that our living is any different now than it was then, other than we're not doing the traveling and the going out to eat all the time. And we're probably a lot healthier than we were back then too, is my guess. So anyway, this is just the video on really almost preparing to retire, getting your finances straight before you actually retire. Now, our income was really only cut by 25%. That's not that much, but we were able to later on, and of course I've already done videos on that. It's been almost, a year and a half almost. We bought property to build a small tiny house, because really this house is, it's some expense to heat and cool it, and taxes and whatever are more on a larger home, and plus we just want a smaller home anyway. So anyway, that's sort of end this video now, and then we'll talk about adjustments that had to be made to do with our living together 24/7, and there were some adjustments, I can tell you. So anyway, we'll do another video, and because I'm going to split this up. All right, we will see y'all in a little while. Bye.